Danny Marang, welcome to Combos Court, man. How are you feeling?
I'm doing good, man. It's a lot better to talk basketball this time of year than this time of year last year.
Oh, most definitely, especially for you. I mean, at the time of this recording, the Blazers are leading the West in with their record. How surprised are you, man?
I mean, I'm surprised. Anybody who says that the Blazers are surprised.
Yeah.
Everybody's surprised. Like there were certainly things that you expected in the sense of Damian Lillard being healthy. I was certainly more bullish on him and that than probably most folks. Um, I figured the addition of Jeremy Grant would be good, not great. I
Mhm.
believe in Anthony Simons' talent probably more
Yeah.
than just about anybody. Um,
Shaden was a wild card.
Listen, Shaden in his first couple preseason games, it was like there's some stuff there, but I don't know. And they ended up playing a second division team from Israel, Maccabi Ra'anana. And I know this sounds dumb, but even he said something about it. He caught a lob and like late in the first quarter, early second quarter, I'm trying to remember, caught a lob and he just threw it down with just such tremendous force and grace. And then he went on to score 27 in the game. And I'm talking to him after the game, and I'm like, did that kind of like let you know that you belong? He was like, yeah, that was kind of. And ever since then, he doesn't question like his ability on the court or like whether or not he belongs. Like, and among the NBA guys, and it was just like that was a switch, and it flipped. And every night you will get something out of him, whether it's a 17-point night or a 2-point night. You will get one play out of him that will make you go, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
And nobody saw that coming this year. Everybody thought we were 2 years away from that.
Yeah. Nobody knew what was coming with him because all we really had was EYBL tape.
And
We
you
didn't
don't know what
like
that is.
Right. Like there was no college tape. In summer league, he got unfortunately injured early and we didn't
5 minutes in.
we didn't get to see him there. So what are you excited about when you watch him play when it comes to his future, his potential?
Okay, so let me preface this. Like the holy trinity of basketball for me with the Blazers starts and ends with Brandon Roy. Like his game to me was always the most enticing. His pacing, his style, the way he went about it. There was just something about Brandon, even though it was only 4 years with his knees, that it brought me back to basketball. So I got out of the Air Force right about the time that he came to the Blazers. And it, thankfully I was overseas in a war zone while the Jailblazers years were going on.
Oh man.
Didn't have to suffer through those in person. But I come back to Brandon LaMarcus. And Brandon had this pace, this timing, this ability to get you on his clock. And there's very few guys in basketball that can do this. Luka's a guy who does this now. Just basically plays at like 7 miles an hour the entire time. He's never too fast, he's never too slow, and he's going to get you on his timing, his cadence. Shaden has that ability already. And I asked him about it. I'm like, hey, did you ever watch Brandon play? Because I'm going to preface this with saying, like, you remind me of him. And me saying that is like, you remind me of a guy who would have been an all NBA player. Like, so, and he goes, actually, yeah, my coach and I, we worked on pace and pacing when I was at Kentucky. That was one of the things we focused on the most getting ready for the NBA.
Him and John
And
Calipari as his coach, or was it
no,
a
his
different
trainer.
coach? Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, no, his trainer.
Okay.
And he goes, this was the thing that like I knew I needed to focus on. And you can see it evident in his game. He just kind of rocks you side to side and then, blows by you. He just lulls you to sleep, pulls up on you, lulls you to sleep, back cuts you. He just has this impeccable pacing and timing that 19-year-old kids are not supposed to have. And it's evident in his game. And then the explosive athleticism. To paint this
Yeah.
picture, Chauncey Billups called him a combination of Brandon Roy and Vince Carter. Chauncey Billups called him this. This is a
Yeah.
guy who likes to pump the brakes on a lot of things. And he played against Prime Vince, and he played against Brandon Roy dropped 41 on Chauncey. Chauncey knows what that dude was when he was at the apex of his powers.
Right.
For him to say that when he he downplays stuff in general is about the highest praise I think you can give a guy. So yeah, there's some hype around the kid now. There's and listen, the last time somebody was this hyped in Portland was Dame. It's that simple. Like they haven't had a guy like this. And before Dame, it was Brandon. Like you're talking about the pillars of the Blazers. You're talking about Clyde. You're talking about Brandon. You're talking about Dame. And Shaedon is falling into that camp as far as now, will he turn into that? I don't know. But a talent profile, that's what guys are talking about him like.
Yeah, I mean, when we watched the EYBL tape, we covered the draft often here. We saw that he could do a lot with the basketball. What have you seen with him playing without the basketball? Because, of course, that's needed with Dame and Anthony.
That's the thing is he's got natural timing on cuts. What's really interesting is that you've got two rookies in Portland in Jabari Walker and Shaedon Sharpe. Mm-hmm. Jabari is the son of Samaki Walker. Was incredible in summer league. I talked to numerous scouts and numerous executives all said the same thing. I've never seen a rookie look that ready without the ball, because that's one of the hardest things to learn, because all of these guys, all of you know this, all these guys had the ball in their hands.
Yeah.
Nobody comes to the league as a role player. There's the few guys that understand that. It's the second round guys. It's the Villanova guys. It's the Marquette guys, who cut their teeth not always having the ball. Jabari was a guy who was second or third leading scorer in the Pac-12, also the leading rebounder, falls to 57th, and you see him understand when, where, how to move without the ball. Never needs the ball in his hands to knock down a shot, whether it's off a back cut, whether it's space into the corner, whether it's slipping a screen. Shaedon does that, but as a guard. He knows how to just time it. You turn your head, his athleticism, his one burst out of the corner is about as explosive as it gets. If you step up, if the Portland and Chauncey have done a very, very good job this year of lifting defenses. And when that defense lifts, that's when Shaedon shines off ball. That defense lifts and he flies out of the corner and looking for a lob or looking for a back cut. In transition, the Blazers are pushing the ball more than they have literally in the last 10 years, whether it's Dame, whether it's Ant, whether it's Josh Hart, whether it's Jeremy Grant. Every single one of those guys are looking for Shaedon Sharpe when they go, 2-on-1, 3-on-2, 4-on-3, odd man opportunities. Shaedon just has a natural ability and a natural inclination to space the floor and find his timing. And honestly, he's one of those guys where you throw it within 3 feet of the rim, he's going to go get it. He's already had probably 3 of the best lobs in Blazers history just in the first month of the season. Yeah.
You mentioned Chauncey. Do you feel like he's getting enough credit? Because I'll reiterate this. I mean, the Blazers are at the top of the Western Conference, at least at the point of this recording. Do you feel like he's getting enough credit for his job there with the Blazers?
Locally, yes. Nationally, no. And I think that's
nationally, it's almost non-existent, right? Like, yeah.
It comes to the territory. In Portland, we're geographically isolated. Nobody talks about us here in this little bubble unless it's the late 90s Trailblazers. Like you've got to be an NBA Finals compatible team for anybody to really care, or you've got a number 1 draft pick in Greg Oden. Like even the best LaMarcus and Brandon teams, nobody really cared about. Like you get a feature story here or there. They talk about them here and there. Dame could, be an MVP front runner and still be like, it's Portland, because it's an outpost geographically.
Well, Dame definitely gets national attention, but he's so great that
exactly.
That's true. He does.
Dame will get his. Yeah. But as far as Chauncey, no, go ahead.
What has Chauncey's point of emphasis been?
Their word that they've kind of chosen is connectedness.
Okay.
So connectedness is what they came out with at Media Day. And they want to be connected on offense. They want to be connected on defense. They want to be connected off the floor. So for the first time this year, Dame used to take the guys down to San Diego when they first kind of 2015, the post LaMarcus years, and they would have a bonding session down there, not an official training camp. They would just hang out together, and that was kind of how they got going. But this year they had training camp down in Santa Barbara, away from the families, away from the wives, away from the girlfriends, away from families and kids and shoe deals and sponsorships and other stuff and just bonded. And it allowed them to focus wholly and solely on basketball. And I'm a proponent of this. I'm a believer in this. Like I said, I was in the military. I feel like the sports is the closest thing you can come to that militaristic brotherhood. And when you get out there, you only have each other to lean on. And if you can simulate a little bit of that by getting away from everything else, but kind of getting on the road, jumpstarting that, because there's so many new guys. Dame and Nurk are the only returning starters from last year. That's a massive turnover in the A. in the NBA. Your Dame and Nurk are the only returning starters, and then your first 3 off the bench are new.
Yeah.
So your top 8, maybe 9 or maybe 7, excuse me, if you want to put Nasir Little, depends on where he fits in there healthy. 6 of the 8 are new.
Yeah.
That's
Dame could be
tough.
the best. I mean, Dame could be the best leader in the NBA.
Oh no, I'm not going to question it. He
Yeah.
is. He genuinely is, and he brings in, because he's a big part of this. He recruits Jeremy Grant in Tokyo. That's why Jeremy Grant is a trailblazer. Those two guys bonded. And you can write a book about the number of players that have been recruited in Olympics that have gone places. And Dame did this. They bonded. And, the Pistons get a 2025 first round pick from the Bucks. And hey, thanks for your service, Jeremy. And Jeremy gets to go where he wants. Comes to Portland, and he fits in here like a glove. Jeremy Grant is playing the best basketball of his career right now. Yeah. And Dame's best teammate outside of LaMarcus ever. If you're talking about like multi-skill, like a guy that you have to think about, Jeremy Grant is that guy. Because listen, CJ was a bucket, but nobody's trapping CJ. Nobody's doubling CJ. And if they are, they're doing it above the break. Jeremy Grant's catching the ball in the mid post, and Dallas is throwing 2 at him because he's cooked them for 30 points in the first 3 quarters. Like the last time the Blazers had somebody else other than Damian Lillard that could throw the ball to at any other spot above the break, or except for above the break, was LaMarcus. Remember, Dame got his start as a rookie feasting off LaMarcus Aldridge double teams. So that has just flipped on its head as far as how the Dame has evolved and the team has evolved. But back to the whole, the idea of Chauncey. Chauncey's connectedness is started in camp, and they want to hold each other accountable. For years, I have wanted this team to be bigger, stronger, longer, more athletic. For the last
that's where the league is going.
It is, and for the last 7 years, the Trailblazers have been the least athletic team in the league. I love Dame. Dame had bounce when he came into the league. He's still bursty as hell, but he's not the most. He's not Ja. That's not. And that's
nobody's Ja.
No, but it's just saying, you don't have like a supreme athlete at the point guard position when you're talking about NBA scale. You look at the 2 guard, Anthony Simons is a dunk contest winner. Like if you're comparing him to CJ McCollum, it's significantly more bursty and athletic than CJ.
That's what makes Anthony so great, because he's such a great athlete, but his game is not necessarily predicated on athleticism.
Well, he busts it out every now and then. And he reminds you, oh, that's right, he's got a 40-inch vertical.
Right.
Shaedon's probably the best athlete in this draft. Then you've got Jeremy Grant, who at 6'8", 6'9", can just kind of be whatever. He's great in the open floor. He can take advantage of mismatches. He's certainly an athlete at the 4 position. Josh Hart wants to just break your face every single time he's on the floor. He's going to compete. Is he a high-end athlete? No, but is he strong? Is he a bulldog? Is he a guy who gets after you? Yes. You look at the bench. Nasir Little, athlete. Gary Payton II, athlete. I mean, you just start going down the list of like what they went and got. They got guys that profile so much different than what they have been for the last 10 years.
Do you feel like Anthony is on a trajectory where he'll even be a better running mate than CJ was? Because CJ was really good, and he still is really good.
No, CJ's a great player,
and he's one of the most. To me, CJ's one of the most skillful players in the NBA.
He has
maybe not one of the best, but he's one of the most skillful.
He has to be because he's not the most explosive guy. I mean, you're looking at a guy who can barely dunk. Yeah. Like he can barely push it over the rim, and he jokes about it. Listen, CJ's mid-range game, he's one of the best mid-range shooters of the last 25 years. The numbers bear it out. He's got 9 years of just being an absolute bucket in the mid-range. Mm-hmm. The only guys who are better than him are the historically great mid-range shooters. Kevin Durant, Chris Paul. CJ's right there. Then he started adding his three-point volume and became explosive. But this is last check. CJ was the worst free throw generating 20-point per game player in NBA history. Does not get to the line. Part of this has to do with he has had foot and ankle injuries that have slowed him down early in his career. So his game changed to, I'm going to stay out of the paint because that's where I roll my ankles. That's where I have my foot damage. And he started trying to be a little bit more aggressive the last 2 years, and he started picking up injuries. And it was like, no, kind of makes sense. With Anthony, he's on that same kind of trajectory with CJ, or originally, because I talked to him about this. He said, I've never had to drive or go to the rim because I could always shoot over anybody. Because his release is like that. He can get his shot off against anybody in the NBA. There's never been a need for him to go to the rim. Now he's learning how to do it. Last year, the question was, can he, run the one? Can he be a creator? Can he handle the ball? And he went from a non-ball handler to a guy who's literally running the offense for 2 months. That's what got him $25 million a year. That's what turned him into Dame's running mate. So like the idea of him growing beyond CJ, right now he's averaging 23, 4, and 4 right now. And he's doing it on okay efficiency. And he'll even tell you, I just haven't shot well. I mean, you're talking about a preseason. I asked him, like, what's an actual goal that you put down for you? Like, what? I know everybody says team success. I'm like, I want you to be selfish. What is an Anthony Simons goal? He goes, I want to be a 50, 40, 90 guy. He's a career 90% free throw shooter. That's easy to see happen. He's a career 40% 3-point shooter. That's
a great indicator of what your shooting potential could be. Like, even when I look at guys coming into the draft, like, if the 3-point percentage is not that great, okay. If the mid-range percentage is not good, okay. But if the free throw, if the free throw percentage is bad, then we might have some issues.
We got to talk.
Yeah, we got to talk. So that is really a really great indicator that his goal is very reachable.
For him, it's finishing at the rim. That's because it's not something he's had to do. But so he has all these incredible athletic tools.
Which is weird, right?
Right?
It's probably just the skill development. It's something he has to rep out, I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, it really, like his handle. He'll tell you his handle isn't as tight as it needs to be. He spent time last summer working with Darren Collison down at P3. And he was working with those guys, like getting his body right, getting his handle right. Just like those are the things that he really worked on. He's still not there, but if I showed you tape of Anthony Simons last year to you 2 years ago, you wouldn't believe that was him.
Well, I remember him very well in the bubble. Like, and there's a huge difference. And he showed some flashes in the bubble. But
that's the thing. You see those like little snippets, but like the way that he grows
what stood out
crazy.
The thing that stood out in the bubble was he had confidence even back then. He definitely had the confidence.
And that was one of those times that early on in his career, his confidence came and went. Okay. And that period last year when he took over, basically averaged 27 and 6, shot like 48, 44, 90. I think his usage rate was like 29%, something insane. It was a bad team. And the Warriors threw a box and one at him. The Suns were trapping him at 40 feet. He was like battling Trey. Trey had a 40-point game. I think Ant had 39. Like, he was just right there with everybody. And it was kind of this evolution. So I say all of this to get to, like, can he be at CJ? He's at CJ's level now.
Wow.
That's the thing. And the thing people have to remember about CJ was a 4-year guy. And he didn't get on the floor for almost 2 years after that because Wes Matthews was in front of him.
Yeah.
So Ant's ahead of the curve. CJ got on the floor at like 24, 25. Ant turned 23 this summer. And he's already at peak CJ McCollum. So the idea of him being better, I don't think it's that far out in left field. I think he's still probably got 2, maybe 3 years of like true development in him before we see him turn into what he's going to be. And the big questions, the swings for him are, can he tighten his handle? Can he be better defensively? He's been leaps and bounds better defensively this year, but there's still room for growth. His handle, if he can tighten it up and use it as his ability to create and get to the rim more effectively, the thing for him is he's shown the ability to be able to generate free throws. And that's kind of, again, when you're talking about free throws being an indicator as a percentage, as a shooter, your ability to create free throws is also a skill that you kind of grow into.
All the league's best players have that in their game for the most part, Yeah.
You have to. In today's game, you have to be able to. I mean, the Blazers and Mavs just played. Luka had 18. I think Dame had 15.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like you have to grift. You have to.
Yeah, and you know what? You talked about how Luka slows the game down. Probably when Anthony slows his game down a little bit, it allows the refs to see you getting fouled at a higher rate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exaggerate and sell that contact. And again, Luka's 6'7", 260.
I think he's 6'8". Yeah, he looks 270.
Yeah, exactly. No, he's a truck.
Yeah, he is.
Ant's 6'4", 200. Like Ant can't, he tries to get over 200 pounds. He can't do it. But he's got to sell it in a different way. He's got to be slithery. Luka's just going to move you out of the way. And so how he manages to develop that game is one of the more interesting things that I'm looking at for him over the next couple of years.
So we're not 2 games into the season, but we're not 42 games into the season either. Blazers, do you believe they're legitimately going to be a playoff team?
I picked them to win 42 games this season and be right there for the play-in.
Okay, but now have you moved off that?
I have. I think they're a 45 win team. I think they're probably the 6th seed because there's going to be some stuff. There's going to be some regression defensively based on some of their shot profile stuff.
Okay.
They're giving up probably a few too many corner threes. They're probably giving up too many shots at the rim. The flip side of that is Yusuf Nurkic has missed 5 games now. Damian Lillard's missed 5 games now. Justice Winslow's missed a couple games. Jeremy Grant's missed a couple games. Anthony Simons missed the game. The Blazers have been one of the most injured teams in the league to start this year, and they're still 9-4.
Yeah, that is crazy. Do you feel like that? I don't want to say it helps you, but it gives those.
No, it does. It does.
It gives those players that are playing more opportunity and the ability to get in a better rhythm.
Yep, you get a little more from Nasir Little. You get Jabari Walker on the floor. Shaden Sharp again had a 17-point night the other night, and it was like, shot 7 to 10, got teed up in the game because he got into the game, and he's starting to. The Blazers are. It's very dangerous what they're doing. Both them and the Warriors are working in.
No, don't put the Blazers and the Warriors. No, I'm just saying, don't disrespect the Blazers like that.
No. But they're working on 2 different timelines. It 100%. It's very 100%. Difficult to do with that. And
that was what was incredible about the Warriors championship last year.
Yes, they did it with so many young guys.
Yeah,
the Blazers, they're a few years behind the Warriors in that curve. But you look at it, I mean, you've got Dame at 32, GP2 at 30, Grant's 28, Nurkic's 28, Justice is 27, I think. Everybody else is 23 or younger.
Yeah.
Anthony's 23, Nas is 22, Shaden's 19. You just go down the roster. Jabari Walker's 20, Trendon Watford just turned 22. Their entire bench is young outside of GP2. He's 30. And he's a young 30 because he's only played 2 whole years in the NBA because he's been bouncing around the G League forever.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's a very hard defining line between what they're doing. And so Dame has said, listen, he pulled his calf in a game before they went on the 6-game road trip.
Okay.
And they ended up having 4 days off. They played Memphis and then they went on the road. And in that time period, Dame was like, listen, man, if they need to rush me back because they need me so bad that we can't win a game or 2 on a road trip, then we're not the team we think we are. And hell, 5 years, forget that. 2 years ago, Damian Lillard would not have said that because he's changed his mentality. He understands what he needs to do with his body.
Well, he's also sending a message when he says that too.
Yes, there's 2 things. He understands how he needs to be physically. He can't force himself in game 7 to play through a calf strain when there's 75 more games. But he also goes, listen, man, we're better than we've been in the past. Which
speaks to the leadership.
And again, Dame, I don't know if he goes home and workshops this stuff or it's just natural or a little bit of both.
Right.
But Dame, I've had the privilege to cover him his entire career. I've never heard him say the wrong thing. Never. There's only one time that I know of his entire career where he refused to talk to the media. Dame talks post-game every game. No other player does that. No other player does that. And he always has the right message. It's truly incredible. You can say, oh, it's prepackaged, it's managed, it's his agent, it's this. I don't think so. I don't think so because he's the same way on random podcasts. Yes.
You know what I mean? And those are that's long form content and that
you're bound to screw up if it's packaged.
That can't be an hour and a half of predetermined talk. You know what I mean?
You can't fake the funk for that long.
And he's the best rapper in the NBA. So
that goes without question.
So let me ask you this. You said it's a niche where you are, that a lot of the topics that revolve around the Blazers don't get national attention. Does that help a creator such as yourself when you're niching down on a place that doesn't have the national attention?
For sure. I mean, I started out, I worked in intelligence in the Air Force.
Okay.
And when I got out, I became a business analyst, and I started doing like analytics on the side for the NBA, or like just like for me on Twitter in 2010. 2010
Okay.
is when I started doing it. And that turned into the Blazers broadcast started using my stuff on Twitter. It wasn't like they didn't say it was mine, but I can tell you where they got it from because I was the only one creating it. And I was like, oh, it's interesting. A local radio station noticed it and was like, hey, do you want to talk about this? Like, this is pretty cool content. Again, this is like the beginning of NBA analytics, right? And I was like, sure. So
What
then
year was this?
2010, no, 2011. So
Okay.
that turned into doing a podcast with the radio station. And then I started writing for Blazers Edge out here. And then that turned into a bigger podcast. Then it turned into the biggest Trailblazers podcast. Like, it was insane. And then that turned into a TV show with NBC. Host the pre and post game show for 4.5 years. And then that turned into me starting my own show. And then I got my own radio show 6 months ago. That's not happening in Los Angeles. Like, it's just too big, and there's too much pomp and circumstance. There's too much stuff around it. In Portland, that path, that was there for me because of the nature of the market. And then as far as like the creating side of it, I've carved this little pie out for me because of I've been around for so long now. I've kind of grown and nurtured relationships to the point of like, I am who I am. They know who I am. And my whole thing now, as far as like covering the team on a daily basis, because that's the cool thing about being on the radio, is that I've come like a radio beat reporter, is when I go ask questions, I don't have to worry about somebody else, what questions they're going to ask. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to ask the basketball questions. I don't listen. There are plenty of people who are much better at writing profiles or understanding the nature of people or telling somebody's story. Not that I don't want to hear about that stuff. That's not what I'm good at. What I'm good at is understanding the basketball side of things, the numbers side of things, and marrying those two things together and then being able to present it. So I get to be in this market where nobody else does what I do in media, and I can go, cool. Hey, remember that in the third quarter when, you guys decided to run X and you got this out of it? Why were you trying to do this? And I can ask those questions and get a basketball answer. Now, the guys who are writing profiles or, writing their daily stuff, they don't care about that. Me, I can take that and throw that on the radio or on the podcast and expand upon it and help fans understand the game better. And so it allows me to kind of, without the national presence or any national narratives, I can do that stuff. And it's really cool because you can just kind of, I asked Chauncey Billups a question that was very analytics heavy. Was it 2 weeks ago? And he goes, I don't know, man. Whatever that shit is you just said, I got to go back to school to understand it. And he was basically calling me a nerd. And it was great because we were going back and forth. And I was like, but then he went and answered the question because he knew exactly what I was saying. But it's like, those are the kind of things that I get to do in this market because I don't have 12, national media reporters trying to ask some question about something that doesn't pertain to basketball.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. Danny, great stuff. You're always welcome back. When the Blazers hopefully make the playoffs, we could have you back on and talk about that later on.
Hallowed be thy name. It's always good for content.
Most definitely. Danny, thanks so much. You're always welcome back on the show. Where can we find you? Social media, everywhere else?
Yeah, you can find me on social media at Danny Marang. And if you're ever in Portland or terrestrial radio, you can find me on 1080 The Fan here in Portland. And then Jack Ramsays podcast. We mostly post-game shows, and then we're up at least twice a week.
Danny, great stuff. You're always welcome back on the show, and talk soon, man.
Hey, absolutely, brother. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.